Hello, everyone. Welcome to the From Compliance to Competency webinar series presented by the Regional Centers for Workforce Transformation. My name is Denise Engel. I am one of the Region 5 co-leads for the Regional Centers for Workforce Transformation and an Assistant Regional Coordinator at YAI. I'm here today with a colleague.
Hello, my name is Dana Fallon. I'm a Senior Behavior Intervention Specialist at YAI's Long Island Day Services. Denise and I will guide you through Understanding Goal Area 3, Demonstrating Professionalism, Competency Area K, Creating Meaningful Documentation Records. In the next 15 minutes, you will be presented with a scenario and visuals that help you remember the skills associated with Competency Area K. You will also hear examples of how and when to utilize your skills to best demonstrate your competency.
In the field, we assist people in identifying desired personal outcomes or what goals they have for themselves. Then we put plans and services into place to support people in achieving their goals. It is important that as professionals, we create meaningful documentation records to represent the work we are doing day to day and the progress that people make. Creating meaningful documentation records is essential. There is one skill associated with this competency area. A DSP should be able to maintain accurate records by collecting, compiling, evaluating data, and submitting it in a timely manner to the appropriate sources. By doing so, a DSP is able to create records that allow for the monitoring of all services implemented, thereby demonstrating professionalism. We will go over how to utilize this skill more specifically, but first let's start off with a scenario where we will apply our general knowledge.
Here's the scenario. You are a DSP supporting Izzy. Izzy had expressed that she wants to participate in a talent show at her senior center and wants to do a stand-up routine. She is someone who needs support to engage in social interactions and has difficulty recognizing and understanding many of the subtleties of humor. Izzy has begun to work on an outcome to learn how to tell jokes, which includes teaching her why certain jokes are funny. For example, is it a play on words? Is there irony in the joke? Is it just a silly statement? Izzy is learning how best to deliver various jokes from a joke book she purchased. You, as a DSP, are working on this particular service with Izzy. She chooses a joke from her book. You review it with her and explain why it is funny, which she understands. When Izzy is telling the joke back to you, she is able to recite the joke. But Izzy recites the joke very quickly, so it is hard to understand what she is saying. She does not accentuate the word needed in order to emphasize the punchline. As a DSP supporting Izzy, you are expected to record the level of support Izzy requires and a description of her response to the service. Think about what you can do to support Izzy by creating meaningful documentation. Remember, according to Competency Area K, as a DSP, you are responsible for maintaining accurate records by collecting, compiling, evaluating data, and submitting it in a timely manner to the appropriate sources. In order to demonstrate the skill we are speaking about, a DSP should record notes in the proper place and format based on your service and agency expectations. Sign and date notes according to agency policy. This may be through an electronic record or with pen and paper. Ensure documentation is thorough, including data where required and baseline information if someone new is accepted into a program or service. Ensure documentation is done on time, according to agency policy, contemporaneously or upon the completion of the service. Maintain standards of confidentiality and ethical practice. Think about where you are and who is around when documenting. Keep books closed. Make sure you are only documenting for services that you provided, not someone else, and not before you actually provided the service. Ensure that recorded communication reflects progress and choices made in a manner that would be clearly understood by a reader unfamiliar with the person or program. If it isn't clear, it doesn't tell what we need to know. Clearly and effectively communicate information through documentation practices. So now let's go back to our joke telling service with Izzy. You are going to support Izzy by creating meaningful documentation records, specifically in this scenario with accurate data collection. How can you demonstrate your competency? First, we need to consider the proper place and format for data collection and submitting documentation. You are expected to digitally document the level of support or prompting needed for Izzy to complete the steps of the task analysis for telling a joke. You are also expected to write a digital note describing Izzy's response. As a DSP, you can respond by ensuring documentation is done on time. You document Izzy's response immediately after completing the service with her. The information is accurate since it is fresh in your mind. In this situation, you are asked to identify if Izzy demonstrated full or partial participation for the service. By looking at the key for participation, you identify and document that Izzy showed partial participation, as she needed some support from you as a DSP. You were also asked to include comments. In that section, you can respond by documenting the following note. Izzy was able to successfully recite the joke word for word as it was written in her joke book. As she was speaking, she did so at a quick pace, making it difficult to understand her words. After receiving verbal prompts to slow down, she was able to repeat the joke in a way that was easier to understand. Staff also provided feedback about the word in the punchline which needed to be emphasized in order to make the joke funny. Izzy was able to understand that, and when repeating the joke, was able to do it. This is a response that reflects progress and choices made in a manner that can be clearly understood by a reader unfamiliar with Izzy. As a DSP, you can clearly and effectively communicate information through the use of professional language in your documentation. In writing Izzy's note, you use person-first language and describe what you observed without making judgments or inferences. Your emotions do not come across in your communication. By responding this way, you create meaningful documentation, facilitate effective communication, and support Izzy. You can respond by signing and dating your notes. You demonstrate your competency by including your initials, signature, and date as required by agency policy. As a DSP, you are responsible for ensuring that documentation is thorough. Data serves as a snapshot of what is going on for a person. By putting the snapshots together, we can get a sense of how best to support Izzy. This speaks to a DSP's role in compiling and evaluating data. As a DSP, your perspective is so important. In this scenario, when you supported Izzy with her joke-telling service, you observed she did not accentuate the word needed in order to emphasize the punchline of her joke. By evaluating your experiences and the compiled data, you notice that the comments recorded for Izzy do not typically speak to the need to accentuate words that would support her in telling a successful joke. Noticing that notes do not include this information is related to ensuring documentation is thorough. This is an opportunity to communicate with Izzy and the team regarding your observation and your evaluation. When communicating with Izzy and the circle of support, it is important to stick to what the data reflects in terms of progress. Sometimes it feels like a person isn't making progress. Then, when we evaluate the compiled data overall, we see there has been some progress made. As the DSP, you want to have an accurate understanding of what the data indicates so that services can be evaluated and revised if needed to support Izzy.
Remember, according to Competency Area K, as a DSP and a professional, you're responsible for maintaining accurate records. Also remember that what you write becomes part of a person's record. Meaningful documentation allows us to bill for services. It is important to be mindful that there are many ways to collect data. So you should refer to the specific services and data collection methods of your agency. Other documentation records for which you might be responsible include meeting summaries, monthly progress reports, ABC sheets and communication logbooks, as well as program-specific records. With meaningful documentation, we can develop person-centered supports and services, which is a primary responsibility of a DSP. Ultimately, we can support people in growing and focusing on the things that are most valuable to them. That is Competency Area K. Each of our webinars includes an activity, something that can be brought back to your work. This activity facilitates the use of a team and self-assessment to support creating meaningful documentation. This activity asks such questions as, what are some ways in which the team can improve practices to create meaningful documentation? And what can you do differently to ensure meaningful documentation? This can lead to great discussion, self-reflection, and growth. Thank you for spending time with us for the webinar on Goal 3, Demonstrating Professionalism, Competency Area K, Creating Meaningful Documentation Records. There are more webinars like this representing each of the 23 core competencies. We hope that you continue to join us. To access these materials and many other resources, visit us at www.workforcetransformation.org.